Hello and welcome. You've landed on Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. This week is going to be unforgettable. We're going to be talking about a tool you already have, but maybe you haven't tapped into or turned on or understood. Now, before we go there, I want to thank you because as young as this show is, it's already become so popular you can see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. And that includes Roku, Apple TV, Fire, YouTube, of course. I put all of the episodes on a website, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. So you can just go there, pack a lunch, and binge and watch all of them and be inspired and informed as we go. Also, from time to time, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And I'm an author, of course, and I have a new book, Your Unlimited Self. Your Unlimited Self just went on Amazon. It reveals 9 proven techniques to clear your mind and attract the right results. And it covers everything from Socratic questioning, Ho'oponopono, self hypnosis, healing music, coaching, tapping or EFT, rewriting your story, novelizing, and affirmations. That's all in the book, Your Unlimited Self. One of the tools in this book is coaching. And I always tell people, look, I believe in coaching. Coaching changed my life. 20 some years ago, I developed my own coaching program called Miracles Coaching. And I want you to check it out. Free, no cost, no obligation. Get a free 45-minute consultation. Just go to miraclescoaching.com, miraclescoaching.com. All right, now let's get to it. My guest here is internationally famous for helping people. In fact, tens of thousands of people have benefited from her work. I personally know her, and she's agreed to be here, which is a big favor to me. But boy, is this a juicy benefit to all of you. Let me tell you who she is. Let me read her introduction here, which means I'm putting on my glasses for a moment. Zen Cryar DeBrücke is founder of Smart Soul Academy, which shares her work on the international guidance system, on the internal guidance system that has made her an international sensation. Zen has worked with over 40,000 people, including training 4,000 master students on the nuances of how to recognize and act on the messages of their internal guidance system to achieve a peak life in alignment with their life purposes. Zen's international best-selling book, Your Inner GPS, is an easy-to-read how-to on the way to let this inner wisdom guide you to success. And her Smart Soul Academy provides a deeper, easily accessible online guide to mastering this art. The key to Zen's success arrived when she decoded her own internal guidance system and learned that everyone was born with a factory installed inner GPS. In the beginning, she used it to fuel her own success as founder and CEO of one of the first internet design companies in the world. The company grew exponentially and worked with Fortune 500 companies, including Applied Materials, IBM, Electronic Arts, BP, and Visa. After that firm dissolved in the dot-com collapse, she found herself filling the request of many of her fellow entrepreneurs and executives to advise them on how she was seemingly emotionally untouched by the roller coaster they were experiencing. It was the springboard for her to become a full-time executive coach and internal guidance system guide. She has since coached thousands of business leaders to use their IGS for success in every area of their lives. And that has ultimately led to the international success of her Smart Soul Academy. And this woman, this expert, this internationally famous authority on this subject is with us. Zen, how are you?
Hi. Hi, Joe. How are you? I'm thrilled to be here. I've literally been waiting for 2 months because our schedules wouldn't work out. But I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you because I think of you as one of my heroes. I use Ho'oponopono all the time, and
Wow.
I return my students onto it, and I think it's a beautiful complement to the internal guidance system. So thank you for your work, Joe. You
Thank you.
changed my life. You
Oh
really,
my goodness, what a way to start an interview by making me blush and almost speechless. Thank you for that. Off to a good start. I have a couple questions for you. I hope you don't mind my asking because I just shoot from the hip. I want to be of the most help to people. Plus, I have my own in depth curiosity. And the very first is, where did you get the name Zen?
oh, I was not born with the name Zen,
Uh
but
huh.
it was given to me when I was 3 years old by a spiritual experience that happened. It was very challenging for me to take the name. I was raised in Marin County in the 70s,
Uh huh.
and up in the mountains where the redwood hot tubs were, and all that. So I've seen lots of people change their name to Willow and Peace and
Right.
Rock and Stone and all this stuff. And so it was really quite an ego challenge, but it has served
Mm.
me well. It has. I had to go through a lot of growth to grow into the name Zen.
Good for you that you own it, though, and it's a great name for you. So I think of you as Zen. When I look at you, I go, "Oh, there's Zen," which kind of calms me down. I'm just thinking inside Zen. That means relax. It means go with the flow. And here you are representing all of that. Another question I have,
Quick, this is crazy because
yeah,
I was so not Zen when the name was
right.
given to me. No, not at all. And I wasn't doing this work yet. And this entire work is very much about following your openings and staying in flow. And it creates a Zen experience.
How did you get started on this path of personal transformation? We're both in the Transformational Leadership Council, so I know what you're doing, and I just read your bio, which is incredibly impressive. But before that, and before Zen,
Yes.
how did you get on that path to awakening?
Yeah. Well, it's my mom. So
Mm,
my mom and I had a very tumultuous relationship, lots of verbal and physical abuse. I was taken out of the home and put into foster care. We loved each other very much, but she came from being homeless. I mean, she was
mm,
living in the, 40s and 50s, homeless in Tucson, Arizona, out of cars and even worse. And she had her own rage issues when she was parenting me. And so um, I had a challenging childhood and I emancipated at 17. And our relationship actually started getting better after that because there was a less responsible moment. But
mhm,
one night she called me up and she was ecstatic because she had read Adult Children of Alcoholics book, the book
mhm,
Adult Children of Alcoholics.
mhm.
And suddenly everything in her life made sense. And it really transformed her. And she said, "You have to read this book. Even though I didn't drink when you were in the home very much, my tendencies were still that." And so I promised and I read the book. And that book from my mom actually started my spiritual and my personal development journey.
Wow. Do you remember the book? Was that the one by John Bradshaw, or
John
was that
Bradshaw.
it
Yep.
was?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, John Bradshaw was awakening people in Houston when I lived there. I got to hear him speak a few times. This is, I guess, in the 1980s,
Yeah.
if I think back. So that was a turning point, was reading the book. What came after that?
Well, so I read the book and I got, a lot out of it and understanding the reason why I am the way I am at that time, but
Mhm,
I couldn't really change anything. I just now had knowledge. And after emancipating from my family, I quit high school and I had to get a job and lots of living out of my car. And what I found was that I was very rageful, very
mm,
bitter, very resentful. And I had a lot of triggers that didn't serve me, self-sabotaging all over the place. So I'd quit a job expecting them to chase me down the street and say, "We can't live without you," or I egoically quit my roommate and then I'm living out of my car, because I was
mm,
angry. And all these things kept happening. And in 1993, one of my friends gave me a cassette tape with Abraham Hicks on it. She wasn't even speaking yet. It was just she was just sitting there and letting Abraham answer questions. And I really liked the law of attraction. She was trying to tell me you're making your own reality. But what hit me hard was that Esther said, or Abraham said, that when you are tight and closed down in the center of your body, it means what you are thinking is out of alignment and allowing, and that you're moving into a place where you are going to be unsuccessful, unhappy, and move away from your life's blueprint. And when you feel
mm.
centered and relaxed in your body, the thoughts that you're having are in alignment and in a state of allowing, and that they are moving you towards your life's blueprint and what will make you happiest and most successful. And I knew that every single time I blew it, that I did something that I really was unhappy with myself for doing. I had that tightness, lump in the throat, tightness in the chest, sick feeling in the solar plexus. And I glommed onto that. And it was actually really hard, Joe, because our minds are pretty crazy and they're filled with false beliefs, which I'll give you an example later. And we can't see them. It's like our programming between 0 and 7 is our reality. You can't question it easily. And I figured it out. And I went from a high school dropout to getting my diploma in high school. And it only took me like 2 weeks testing out. And I ended up getting all the way through UC Davis, with a degree in foreign policy, started my own import-export company, and then ended up downtown San Francisco, a block and a half from the Transamerica building, with one of the first internet design and usability firms in the world. And it only reason I was able to do that. I know, I feel like when I heard your story and so forth, when we've been on stage at TLC and things, I feel like we've got kind of a similar background in a way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was inspiring to me. What happened was, as I started following this energy of flow, I call it feeling light, open, and wise. And you move from opening to opening. And when you do that, magic and synchronicity become the norm. You're constantly recorrecting. You feel a little closing or a big closing and you correct, you pivot to an opening, and you're always in a state of allowing. And so it's pretty profound how magical life is when you're in this place of reception and opening and you're cultivating new thought. But what I discovered, because I've been doing this for 23 years, what I discovered, Joe, is that when you pivot to the opening and you get that expansion, you start a new neural pathway. And so this is very much like a little alarm cell closing down that tells you you're in old programming that's not going to get you where you want to go. And when you pivot and you open, you can't believe the old programming. It doesn't feel true for you anymore. And now that starts to go neurally extinct. And the new thought begins to take hold. So let me just position this. It's one of the things that's amazing, but we have a system that we were born with that will allow us to moment by moment recreate our mind. Think about that.
Pausing to let that sink in. I'm taking it in myself, but I'm letting people absorb what you just said.
We were born with it. It's with us every day. It's been guiding us all our life. And so what happens is so quick, within 3-4 weeks of learning to use it, because I do it somatically. You can't, and I'll explain that too, but you start to feel like a different person. Your reactions are different. Even people say their voices are changing because there's that high shrill with stress and they start dropping in. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's amazing.
And is this what you're calling the internal guidance system?
Yes, I call it internal guidance system, IGS for short.
Yeah. You know, what comes up for me is most of our phones have some sort of GPS on them, and most of the new cars have some sort of GPS on them. And I don't trust either one of them. I don't trust either one of them because I've gotten lost with them misdirecting me or getting confused about, oh, you meant High Avenue rather than High Street. And suddenly I'm on the wrong side of town. So in case anybody is thinking the same way, how is the internal guidance system more reliable?
Well, what I found is that I really tested this out. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a way to break it. I don't want to put somebody to stake their life on something. And so I've gone out and I've tested it with 40,000 plus people now, and I have never had anybody come back and say it's not working. There may be some confusion, or there's a time delay from what they open to and what occurs, or something better. It doesn't stop. So the hard part about this, well, let me give you an example.
Good.
Do you know what color a yield sign is?
Sure.
Go ahead. What color is it?
Yellow.
Yes. So most people, 95% of the people that I work with, say yellow and black. Actually, in 1971, Congress changed it to red and white. And by 1974, all yield signs in the United States were red and white. So the reason why this is important is most of the time I have to stop, and your listeners might want to pause, because they have to look it up, because it's so visceral. It's so real. It's like I can see it. I know that this is what's happening. And there's no information system an update in our brain. So when we go past hundreds of thousands of yield signs that are red and white, your mind never says, oh, that's different. In fact, what will happen for most people that's been reported through my students, they won't see anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting thing is people born
Mm-hmm.
after 1974 will still say yellow and black. Even my son, who's 8, when he was 2, watched the guy that played the snowman, Olaf, in Frozen, dance around with a yellow and black yield sign. Okay. And so it's still there. We don't see our yield signs. I mean, how many times have you been in an argument with someone and you've said, but I'm not doing that, but that is not what I meant. That's not where I'm coming from. And the other person was adamant that this is what's really happening. Well, it is for them because their brain doesn't know how to update. But if I give you a red crayon and I have you draw out the red and white yield sign, it will be permanent because the body updates the mind. Okay. And so EFT, what is it? Neuro linguistic program, NLP, hypnosis, somatic therapy, all of these various things, the body updates the brain. This is the reason why so many people have done courses and books and trainings, and they get home and they're excited and they know they can do it. And by Wednesday, they're back to where they were, because more information doesn't work. But this is the body updating your brain. And so the transformation is rapid.
Fascinating. Can you give us an example of how there's so many questions I want to ask you. I think maybe even to back up, you said that we have this in us and it's been guiding us, but most of us don't know that, don't realize that, don't recognize that, don't acknowledge that, don't hear that, and maybe have never once considered that they were being guided. How are we being guided?
Well, let me give you an example. Can we walk through an exercise real quick?
Of course. Yes, of course.
Good. So what I like people to do, and everybody that's listening can do it as well, is you just go ahead and close your eyes, because it gets rid of the physical sensation thoughts, visual thoughts, and then feel the bottom of your feet. You may notice there's a little tingling or energy there. And then pay attention to the palms of your hands. And once again, a little warmth, tingly energy there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you a statement, 2 statements that you'll just run through your mind like a cloud does through the sky. And just notice any sensation between the throat and upper solar plex area. So pay attention to the center of your body. Here's the first statement. I do not have an internal guidance system. I do not have an internal guidance system. Noticing if there's any sensation between your throat and upper solar plex. And here's the second statement. I do have an internal guidance system. Noticing any sensation again. I do have an internal guidance system. All right. Wiggle your toes and your fingers. Open your eyes. Hi. So with the first statement, did you have any sensation?
Well, because I believe we do have an internal guidance system, I felt the darkness and the heaviness of it. It was more of, it's a lie, that's not true feeling.
Yes. And then the second one, I do have an internal guidance system. Was there a shift?
Yeah, that's bright, that's open, that's the light at the end of the tunnel. Plus, I had written a song called The Great Something, which was all about a great something that has been guiding us all along from the inside.
Yes.
So that was everything. That was music, that was light, that was everything opened up.
Exactly. And so that's what people report all over the world. Doesn't matter what culture you're from, doesn't matter what belief system you have, it all works the exact same way in every human. That's why it's different from intuition. Intuition's different in each human, but the internal guidance system I've found is exactly the same. Now, it shows up in different areas. So most people report with the first sentence, a collapsing, a lack of breath, a heaviness, like you said, a sick feeling in their stomach, a lump in their throat. And then with the second statement, we call that closing, by the way. And then with the second statement, they feel a release of all of that. There's a brightness, there's a breath, there's an upward shaped V kind of straightening of the spine experience for people. And so that we call an opening. And all day, every day, we're getting these in various expansion and contraction moments. So for instance, it's like a compass, meaning that due north is a big opening, passion, like an idea that you can't put down. I know you've had these where you just can't stop for 2 days thinking about it and putting it on paper and working it out, or months even, you know? And then it'll go down to east or west, and that's neutral. And most people, once they've been trained, they spend most of their days in neutral, in this comfortable, lovely, yummy space. And then all the way straight down is closing, and that is terror or panic, super fear. And so what happens is you're going through your day, and you'll get a slight opening or a slight closing based on a thought. It's all our own thoughts. And so the interesting thing is when you have a bad feeling about someone, nothing outside of us, you're going to love this, nothing outside of us creates these sensations. It's our thinking about it, which is amazing, because when you shift your thinking, you have the power to shift your thinking. You can't shift everything outside of you. So when you shift your thinking and do an opening, a path opens up. I like to say that we're only one opening away from our life straightening out, because it's true. So yes, everyone has this, and we've labeled it frustration, fear, anxiety, overwhelm, irritation, doubt, procrastination, rushing, right? Impatience. These are some of the these are all closing, every single one. And what it means is in that moment, what we're thinking is not true or not going to happen. And so I teach people, when they feel these sensations, the exact process to pivot to get to the opening. They're back on track, and that sensation falls away, and that light you felt comes back.
Oh, this is juicy. This is good. This is good stuff. All right. So I wanted to know what the opening and the closing was, because you have referred to it in your material, but now I know. But the other thing you said, but we can't just slide by this, is that you said it's different than intuition. So
Yes.
how are these two things separate?
I'm an incredibly intuitive person. I'm claircognizant. A lot of this work, the way I was able to decipher it was through using that technique, that tool. Um, I've trained and taught to other intuitive people, empaths, clairvoyant, clairsentient, various things. And it's different for every person. So I can take 4 empaths and put them in a room and have them describe how they receive the emotional impulses that they receive, and it's all different. Some of them actually feel it in their body as something's happening. Some of it feel like a cloud in the room. Then the energy is there. It's always different. And so the internal guidance system is always the same. Now, there are 3 areas that different people feel different things, not different things, feel different, the areas differently. So I work with like top executives at large companies, and very few of them have a lump in the throat. And that lump in the throat is your own self-sabotaging thoughts about what's possible for you and what you're capable of and how much you're loved. And then so they don't feel that. They have this confidence, right? And then when the tightness in the chest shows up as, worry and anxiety and frustration and all that, that's a real life moment, what you're thinking in this moment, in the strategy that you're planning on. So as you project forward, you're thinking, so let's say it's as simple as going to the post office. I use it almost all the time to go to the post office. If I close, I don't go. And if I open, I go immediately. We have to go to the post office because we have a PO box, no mailboxes where I live. And so there's a lot of people going to that post office, and I show up and 12 people pile in behind me, but I'm almost always the first or second person in line, because it knows your future. It knows what's best for you. And it's really about flow. It helps you also keep in alignment with what you're supposed to do that day. So
Wait a minute. It knows my future. How much further down the road does it know?
Well, this is interesting. I mean, it's one of the things is I don't know. It's been one of the most fabulous things about having students is we go through self-determination or free will. And I think it's both. I think that my personal belief, and I separate my beliefs from the work, because the work I can count on your experience. But as far as something else may be true for you, I believe we're supposed to all have different experiences, and that will aggregate, like all of us touching an elephant, trying to figure out what it is. Right. All of our different experiences will feel what's true. So for me, I believe from all the near-death experiences that I've researched and looked at and done for my own personal enjoyment, that we plan what we do before we get here. And then we come down here and it gets a cacophony of noise and programming and loudness and other things, and we lose our way. And I believe that this system was given to us to help us stay on track in this place that's really, really loud. And so it knows what our choices were before we were born and what we wanted to do, and it's guiding us to that purpose. So for me, it's predetermined because we ourselves determined it, but it's also free choice because we had the choice to determine it. And when we get down here, the free choice can often override predetermined. And the IGS is here to remind us and try to get us to the finish line the way we wanted to.
So what if somebody is sitting here now, because we have entrepreneurs and spiritual people, and this show is being seen on 1,000 platforms around the galaxy. So we don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people might be tuning in. But let's just create an example. There's a woman who is divorced, who has 2 kids and lost her job. She is watching this on YouTube on her iPhone or whatever she's got, and she's panicking. And she wants to believe you, and she wants to believe her internal guidance system, but yet she's sitting there in you've been there and I've been there, a panic, a survival mode. How am I going to get out of this? What would you recommend? How does she even begin to turn down the dial and get to a place of Zen?
So panic and terror are deep closing. The deeper the closing is, the less true the thoughts are. So the first thing I would tell her is none of the dire things that you're thinking of are going to happen. If it was going to happen, it would open you. You would feel that opening light feeling. If something dire, what your mind thinks is dire, because oftentimes dire things are the breakthrough that leads us to the miraculous life we've been waiting for.
There's a quote for us right there. I mean, I'm not kidding. I mean, you can take that out and put it on a t-shirt, that line right there.
Yeah, exactly. So our mind doesn't know. It's going to panic about stuff because it doesn't know. So the first thing to know is I'm going to give you guys a URL, which will give the 3 practices to get you in touch and connect the brain to the IGS and then also use it. So in this moment, the biggest thing that she could do is try to discover what she really wants to have happen in her life. So because that will open her, when she finds the right thing, you'll feel the light and that expansion and that open happen. Now, the thing that you have to do is you have to stay with that thought for a while. Now, this is just because I can't train her, right? I use the Miyagi approach, wax on, wax off, right? Okay. So I found that the body programs the mind. So I give these tiny somatic practices. It's like a 15-minute or less lecture. You do the practice for 3 or 4 days, your life changes and you have it. You come with your own ahas. I don't come to the brain with logic. I come to the brain with what happens in the emotion and the outside world. Then I give you another and another. So this woman hasn't trained with me. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. I'm giving her, this is not what I would have you do if you trained with me. But I would say everything that you're thinking that's causing panic is not true or not going to happen. What you need to do is you find out what you truly do want to happen. And then you ask what is even better than that. Because we want to get you to a place where you actually are back in alignment with what you want to have happen. And then I would have her stay on that path of dreaming about it, planning it. Even vision boards and all that are good, because what happens is we get locked into panic and we start self-projecting that happening through choices we make when we're afraid. And those choices are closing and they will not work. So if we can get her focused, even for a few minutes a day, which I would prefer all day long, she fantasizes about her big openings around what would be better than that. What will happen is that frequency, because I do believe law of attraction is real, but that frequency will set her up and she will start running into the people, the situation, the experience that will give her that outcome. And it may look at working at Starbucks, and then somebody at Starbucks and they say, oh my gosh, you're super talented. I want you to come do X, or what did you used to do? And before too long, it just starts to evolve. Free places to live, money starts coming in. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'm a magic money person, and so are most of my students. Money just arrives. One of the things that always opens me and it opens my students is I always have what I need well before I need it. So I don't have to think about and plan about that. It's just always there, and it opens us. So like, for instance, when a bill comes in, this is the difference between affirmations, right? And positive thinking. a bill comes in. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize our taxes were going to be that high this year on our house or whatever. And I'm like, no, but I always have what I need well before I need it. And that opens, and that opening is the truth. And so I can't go into lack thinking that it's not going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it always proves itself to work out.
This
So
is
it
good.
just keeps reinforcing.
This is very good. So I want to ask you a different kind of question. I've always been fascinated by time travel. So let's imagine you can go back in time and visit the Zen who does not have the name Zen yet. And she is either living in her car or about to live in her car. And you tell her what you just told our make believe listener. How would you respond?
Oh, I'd be excited because you can feel the truth. This make believe
Mm.
listener who's listening right now just
Mhm.
felt everything I said, and it's the IGS opened. And so there's an excitement, there's a thing there. So I would feel that. The hard part is you need to, it has to be trained. We're working with the mind, and it has programming from 0 to 7 that is knee-jerk reaction triggering. And
Mhm.
so it does take a specific practice. But the key is that I've created all 13 programs, and I'm still continuing to create, and I've made them super affordable. It's $47 a month without coaching, and 97 with 5 group coaching sessions with me a
Oh,
month.
that's excellent. That's excellent. Do you
So
have the links to give out now, or do you want to give
I
them back?
do.
Yeah,
It's smartsoulacademy.com. And
smartsoulacademy.com. Okay.
yep. And within the first 3 weeks, your life will begin to actually literally flow. You're going to feel you literally feel an energy come up and move you to the next thing you're supposed to do in your life. And the first program undoes a lot of that childhood programming. A lot of what's keeping us locked is obligation. And the internal guidance system is something that you can trust because opening begets opening. What I mean by that is nobody can use it in a selfish way because you can feel each other. We can feel each other's opening. This is a deep connection into a oneness. As you get deeper into the work within 6 months to a year, there's a spiritual dynamic,
Oh.
personal and individual to you that begins to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, this is very personalized because we're working. So somebody can come up. I'll give you an example. I have a lot of people do this. They come to me and they'll be like, I have a problem with abundance. I'm a lack consciousness person, or I have a problem with abandonment or rejection, and I'm like, when, where, how does it show up? What is it? When is it? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you can't just blanket lack consciousness. Do you have a house? Yes, that's not lack. Do you have a car? Yes, that's not lack. But what is lacking? Okay. And what we find out is it's not about what they have. It's about being afraid of filling up their gas tank with the higher gas prices, being afraid of turning on the heater, their kid coming home and saying they need $250 for soccer, oh no, the water heater went out. And so they immediately go to, I can't afford it. Well, that thought is closing. All lack thoughts are closing. Now, what do I mean by that? I once was, I used to have lack consciousness, and every single month my parents used to worry about making the mortgage, and they would flip out at the end of the month. My dad got paid once a month. By the end of the month, we were eating rice, oatmeal,
Right.
we're still eating, but it was hard. And so I would freak out about a week before my rent was due. And every time it closed me, and every single time I had my rent. And then 1 month it opened me that I was not going to have rent, which means I'm not going to have rent. And I was like, am I going to be able to catch up this month? Closed. Am I going to be able to catch up next month? I'm not going to have rent. I found I wasn't going to have rent next month. And I thought, am I going to be okay? And I opened. Am I going to get kicked out of my house? Closed. I was just naturally just thinking through what's happening. I'm not literally sitting and asking questions like, oh, magic 8-ball, IGS. No, I'm just kind of going through my thoughts, noticing the expansions and contractions. And I got an opening to call my landlord and be honest. And he was so great. He said, sweetheart, you're such a great tenant. We don't care. We don't need the money. You'll catch up. I know it. And I did. He said, I said, it's going to be 2 months though. It's going to be 2 months, Rob. And he was like, not worried about it. It's going to be fine. Don't think about it.
That's a great story and a great example. So I have to ask you a different question. I get this question all the time, and I'm sure you get it. How do you win the lottery? How do you win the lotto when you use your internal guidance system? How do you use the
Well,
what?
you can't just win the lotto if it's not part of your blueprint.
Mhm.
So a lot of times what people have found, so I'll give you an example. I had this attorney, very high powered attorney in Marin County, not married, comes from a long line of judges, comes to me and says, I want 2 kids in a house in Sausalito, and I want this and I want that, and blah, 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 help me manifest it. When someone is truly on their path and on their blueprint, right? There's an excitement, there's a vibrancy, you can feel it emanating off of them when they hit their dream.
Hmm.
And I kept working with him like, this isn't what you want. He said, yes, it is. This is what I want. I said, this is not what you want. There's no energy in your body or appetite for this thing happening. So we went back and forth, and I was just about to refund his money because I was like, you're not a good client for me. I can't help you. And he had gone to a sidewalk show in Sausalito for artists, and he came back and he was over the moon talking about the art and how fabulous it was. Our session was right after this art walk, and he said to me, I've always wanted to be an artist. I've always wanted to go to Paris and study. And I said, there it is. But I can't. My dad was a judge. My grandfather was a judge. I'm going to be a judge. I can't. I mean, this is my family lineage. And I was like, but it doesn't open you. It won't work out.
Mhm.
You're not on your blueprint. You're going to waste your life. You're going to get to the end of it and be like, what did I do? I said, take 3 weeks off work and go to Paris. Study something. So he did. He came back, committed. Not only that, he came back and he was moving to Paris. So he told his dad, who's a judge in San Francisco, and his dad was furious, like really unhappy. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm going. Within 2 months, his dad called him back and said, I've always wanted to work with wood. I'm going to retire and start working on my wood dreams that I have of building furniture. Our openings, we get openings for others. And the end of that story is he went to Paris. He ended up getting an apartment. He went to art school there, and he found his beloved, and they've been married ever since, and they're doing great.
That is a great story. It brings up the question, since you referred to the blueprint, which is, as I understand it, would be the predetermination plan we had made before coming in. So we have this underground. I don't know how else to say it, but there's a blueprint there that's available for us with the internal guidance system. Can some people use the blueprint as an excuse not to do something? In other words, because self sabotage is so rampant, is it possible that somebody could deceive themselves into saying, oh, my blueprint doesn't say I should be in the art world, even though the blueprint actually does say they should be in the art world, but because they want to squirm out of the responsibility of doing it, they throw it on a blueprint. Does
Right.
that make, do you understand?
It will close them.
It
They'll,
will close them.
they'll feel stress, anxiety, worry, fear, frustration,
I
irritation,
see. I see.
everywhere else
Okay.
in life. It doesn't shut up.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
It doesn't. Your IGS keeps working with every thought you have.
No, that's beautiful. It makes sense to me because now I'm gathering the feeling that, and feeling's the word, that if I start to say something like that, or somebody else does, they can pay attention to their inside. And if it feels like they shut down, it got heavy, it was the darkness, it was that constricted feeling, it was the lack of energy, excitement feeling, then that was probably a closing.
Yes. Yes. If you're
Okay.
feeling any of those things. And like, I'll give you an example too. Like
Yeah,
one of the
good.
reasons why I recommend people do the coaching with Smart Soul Academy is because big things come up we can't see through. So an example is I was working with this woman, and her son got married to a woman, and she also had 2 daughters, and they didn't like the woman he married. And so the woman he married took the husband out and went to another state because she didn't want the tension, smart wife,
Right.
and actually wouldn't let the mother come anymore. So they then started, they got pregnant, and they're about to have a baby, and the woman was not inviting the mom to come to any of this. And she's kvetching and bitching, but she's closed. She's closed the whole time. So we're talking, and I said, and the daughters are against her. It's this whole collusion thing. And I stopped and I said, okay, so you're saying that she took your son away. But my question is, did you ever bring in her as another daughter because she joined your family? And she said, never. From the beginning, we've been against her, and we've done nothing at all to welcome her.
Mm.
And I said, what would you do if you were her? and you felt that energy. And she was like, oh my God, I sabotaged my family. So she immediately, and what happens is she says, I'm feeling an opening all over my body. It's true, right? So there's no shame. When something's broken or wrong and you use your IGS, there's no shame. There's only opening. There's only confidence. There's only a feeling of love, of divinity, of empowerment to handle the situation. It's a completely, nothing that shames us is opening. Nothing that we beat ourselves up with is opening. All of that is egoic lies that are closing. And our IGS is asking us to stop. So anyways, she began to do things to reach out. She asked for forgiveness and said, I'm so sorry. She goes to see her babies, her grandbabies, 4 to 5 times a year now, and they're buddies. And she's working with the daughters because the daughters are still, a grumpy. And she's like, wow, I cannot believe how closing everything that I don't know. I can't believe I didn't see that I was participating in something so closing. And it's starting to work out. And now we're coaching on her being the matriarch of the family and holding the line and bringing her family back together through her state of allowing and manifestation experiences.
This is really great. So let me ask you this question. What if somebody has to do something that tends to close almost everybody?
Like, oh yeah, okay, I'll give you a darn good example of that.
Oh, I don't even have to finish the question. Go ahead.
There's always a time and a place where it opens you to do it. And when that happens, it's perfect. So whether it be something like taxes, but I have the perfect thing. I used to live in yurts. We did a homesteading. My husband and I did a 5-year home steading experience. We had yurts up in the Santa Cruz Mountains and chickens, garden, and all that stuff. And we had a composting toilet. Now, composting toilet has to be cleaned out 3 or 4 times a year. Now, you can imagine what it would be like to clean out a home, composting toilet. Okay. And so it was my job because my husband could not gag. And I literally wore a gas mask. Because the smell, and I would be putting it off. And then all of a sudden one day it would just open me to get her done. And I'd go out there and it was never as bad as I thought it was going to be, and my mind had made it up to be something horrible. And I was okay. And it was done. And then I got super good kudos from my husband because I took on the shit. Oh, sorry. I don't know
Literally.
Literally.
Right. But let me put your feet in the fire just a little bit more here. What if somebody they're commanded to go to an IRS audit at 9 a.m. on Thursday? They don't get a choice. They got to be there at 9 a.m. Thursday. How do they create, most people are going to close down. So I'm assuming that whoever this is going to close down. How do they open on command?
So here's the thing. What's closing them is their thoughts. Most people will leap to the dire, how much work it's going to be, how much money it's going to be, how hard it's, all that. Yeah. So, those thoughts are closing them, which means none of those thoughts are true. So first thing you do is you start looking at your thoughts that are closing you, because you said they're going to close down. Very apt. And then you start, no, it's not going to be so hard. It's going to be okay. And you start playing with your thoughts. And you move into the opening. And when you feel the opening, you write. I recommend people write them down because our mind is going to attack us again within 15 minutes. So that way you read them, and that's where if you want to really have powerful affirmations, those are them. They're the ones that open you, that are real. Because you'll bounce around, and I have, my brother died he was lost up in Idaho in his car. He was in a wheelchair. He got wrong directions. He went down a mountain road that was closed, and he got halfway, 33 miles up it, and he got high centered on a car. And I'm in a rock. And he couldn't go. He couldn't do anything. And he died of dehydration. We looked for him for 10 days. The moment that I heard, my aunt called me and I heard that he had not shown up like he was supposed to a day ago, I thought, I'm never going to see him again. And I opened. That didn't make me happy, but I was centered and calm to manage the entire awful TV made for movie experience, I'd had people whose parents have been going through, a mom's been going through cancer, and open that she's not going to die. And then one day she calls me, a client, and she says, I open that my mom's going to die this time, but I feel totally different. I'm open. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Yeah. Last year I went through breast cancer. I'm fine. I'm perfectly healthy. I felt a lump. I opened that it was cancer. I made the appointment. I went down. I told the doctor it's cancer. We went to the mammogram. I told the woman it's cancer. Then the big heavy doctor comes in after my mammogram and says, heavy being heavy energy, you have cancer. And I'm like, okay, I got it. It's going to be fine. And they're like, no, well, I had also opened that I was going to need a double mastectomy. That's what that my good choice was, that I wasn't going to need chemo or radiation. And that's exactly what happened.
Ah.
So
this is good. When you say open in these cases, it sounds like it's another phrase for accepting. I accepted.
No, it's expanding, and
it's
so
what? Say it again.
It's a physical expansion. Acceptance is in the mind.
Okay.
Right? So your mind, I'm going to just accept this is going to be hard and we have to go through it. This is a physical expansion of energy in the body, like you said, when the light came in.
Yeah.
That light is truth. You could say that is the truth. And then from there, because I've had so much experience, I was able to work through the situation to the point where the doctors are telling me we're going to do 6 months of chemo before we do the surgery. And I said, no, we're not. There's no reason for me to do, why would you want to do that? Or radiation, sorry. I said, why would you want to do that? Well, we want to shrink it. I said, but it's broken open. Why do we need to shrink it? I'm doing a double mastectomy. Let's get this done. And they're like, well, it's better if you, I'm like, no, I don't want to spend the money. I had medical, but I'm like, I'm not going to spend the money or the time. We're going to go. And then I'd like you to schedule me within 3 weeks. And they did. There's nothing in the lymph node. Biopsy, everything's gone. They said it's perfectly clean, but we still recommend that you do chemo for 6 months because it'll decrease your chances of recurrence by 5% or 0.5%. I said, well, what are my chances of recurrence? And they said 3%. And I said, so you want me to go and poison my body for 6 months for a 0.5% decrease in my chance of recurrence? I'm not going to do that. Thank you. I appreciate it. But we're just trying to make sure you're going to live. I said, I am going to live.
We're going to be running out of time here. I want to ask a couple quick questions. One is, the show is called Zero Limits Living. And one question I like to ask is, do we have any limits? And so I can probably guess your answer, but that's not my job here. What is the answer? Do we have limits? Do we have any limits?
I do think we have limits. Within this blueprint, people take this lifetime often as an achievement or this big, adventure, and it is. But the biggest reason you're here is because you've got some polishing to do on your soul. And the situations will come up for you, and once you know how to handle them, they're easy. But the hard things in life are soul polishing, right? And so that's the most important thing here. And so you could, like, I built a multi-million-dollar business in downtown San Francisco and then went through the .com crash using my IGS. But that moment and my cancer and a bunch of other things that I've been through, they polished my soul. I turned to the IGS. This is my job this lifetime, is to get this out there so that and present it so that other people can glom onto it. And we need this on our planet. Can you imagine a planet where there's absolutely zero stress, right? And everybody's already happy. And so, however, the other thing is that we have bigger limits. I mean, we have bigger ability to have zero limits, and we are supposed to have those things, but some of those things will actually stop us from polishing our soul. So yeah, you win the lottery and get $800 million, and you put all of your energy into the $800 million and what to do with it. You blow it, you're back to being in a trailer and broken, which is what happens to most lottery winners. Most lottery winners, I believe, go through that experience because they're polishing their soul.
I would say that your next book should be called Soul Polishing. That is a cool phrase. Soul polishing, or soul polish, whatever you want to call it, or write a song. I don't know, but do something along those lines.
Yes.
In the last moment or two that we have together, what is the number one thing you want people that are watching or listening to Zero Limits Living to get? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to think about? What do you want them to open to?
Yeah. So a lot of people are miserable because they are looking for that one purpose that they have in life. And your blueprint is thousands of things. And so I would like to say that you don't have one purpose. You have 100,000 purposes in your lifetime. Don't get overwhelmed. They're giving the book to your best friend. They're having a deep conversation with a stranger who's the barista at Starbucks. They're you doing your internal work. You're taking care of your grandbaby so that your daughter can go to work and take care of the family. It's being with your kids. It's those eye connections that you have with people where you really say hello. And then it's also the bigger things, your career and the healing work that you do, and letting somebody go in traffic, which allows the entire experience of being in traffic to be happier. We have 100,000 life purposes, and you're already doing it. This IGS, even though you may not have it mastered, it's already been operating in your life, and you have mastered it to a certain extent, and you matter. And all these little tiny choices you make that are into the experience of opening, that is what changes the life of this planet and every human being on it, and you're a part of that. So don't worry about the one big life purpose. You're doing it. You're doing it by just being you.
That's beautiful. And thank you for sharing your life purpose by being here and influencing me and everybody that's watching and listening. What's the website again that you want people to go to?
So the free course is mymindspark.com, mymindspark.com. And there you'll get the first 3 practices that are in Smart Soul Academy. So you can feel this for yourself for a few days and see what it's all about. I promise it'll work for you. And then if you want to join our membership, it's smartsoulacademy.com, smartsoulacademy.com. And there you have 13 programs and coaching with me if you'd like.
Zen, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for being here. Thanks for touching me and everybody that's watching and listening. You're doing God's work. Godspeed to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I love you, and I hope you have a great
Thanks.
day.
Everybody, you've been watching Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Every week I bring you information and inspiration to transform your life. This show is now being seen or heard on 1,000 different platforms across the galaxy. But for the ease of it all, just go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Make sure you check out your free consultation for Miracles Coaching. Go to miraclescoaching.com. And I want to thank Lux Media Studios for putting this on, Candace Barr for making it possible, Chris, who's making us look and sound good behind the scenes there in the techie room. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Go out there and, as I like to say, and my t-shirt says, expect miracles.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.